4 years ago, I started using a flip phone. I recently upgraded to an iPhone, and it turns out you're really good at those iMessage games.
Yeah.
Like pool and archery and all of that. When the fuck did you get good at video games?
I don't know. I've never played.
That's a lie. That's a fucking lie. It feels like you play these games every day.
I've never played these games except for with you. I don't think I've ever played with anybody else.
Really?
Yeah.
You're wiping me across the fucking floor, dude.
Yeah.
Mopping with me.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Hello and welcome to our kitchen table. I'm sitting here with my wife, your therapist, and we're actually going to be talking about speedrunning therapy today, which I'm actually kind of excited to talk about. So, as always, my name is Price, and I married your therapist.
I'm Ash, and I'm your therapist. This is a podcast, not therapy. Let's get into it.
A lot of people complain about therapy, saying they don't tell me anything. They just want to sit there and listen to me complain and charge me hundreds of dollars for the pleasure of doing so.
Right.
That's a fair criticism because a lot of
Yeah.
therapy can feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely go into therapy wanting to like tell me what just tell me what I need to do. Just I'm gonna tell you what's going on, and I just want you to tell me what to do to not feel so bad all of the time. I want very practical, very very detailed like instructions on specific instructions on what I should do.
Yeah.
And that's not always what I get in
That's
therapy.
actually specifically something we're taught not to do. Is, people who
Actually
go
help.
to help at all. We're taught to get in the way at every opportunity.
I could just imagine your professor like, see, they're going to come in and they're going to want you to help them. But no, you're not going to help them. You're actually going to make things worse. And then they'll keep coming.
Yeah, you met my professor,
And then they'll keep coming. Yes. And then they will never stop coming. And then they'll fuck up their children. And their children will be coming. And there will we have an industry of therapy for the entirety of the human existence.
Like most things, it just perpetuates itself.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so that's about it on that.
Okay, cool. Well, as always, thanks so much for your time, Ash.
Okay, back to what was the question?
I want to talk about speedrunning
We're not
therapy.
supposed to give advice is the thing. So the funny thing is, I think we maybe talked about this in a first episode, but the funny thing is a lot of therapists go to school because in some way they were the advice giver in their friend group or the advice giver in their life or probably in their family to their parents or whatever. And you're like, well, I'm really good at this. I'd like to learn how to give better advice. I'd like to learn expertise level advice giving.
Yeah.
And then you get to school and the very first class is by the way, therapists don't give advice.
Which blows my mind because it's like, well, then what exactly do you do?
Yeah.
If you can't actually just give advice, then you're just sitting there listening.
Well, on the one hand, I think that not giving advice is important. I'm not the one in your life, and I think that giving advice assumes that I know something about you that you don't. Like if you say, should I break up with my girlfriend? I'd be like, Price, why do you have a girl? No, I'd be like, why? If you're saying, should I break up with my girlfriend? And I'm just able to say yes or no as advice. That's not helpful to you. First of all, you didn't learn anything. Also, you're probably not going to want to listen to me if I'm like, yes, go break up with your girlfriend. And if you do break up with your girlfriend and then you feel sad because you broke up with your girlfriend and that sucks, even if the relationship wasn't working out, you then feel like it was just my fault. And had you done your own thing, you wouldn't have been so sad. And
that's why you don't want to give advice.
So on that front, I think not giving advice makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense that I don't know your life better than you. I'm not the expert in your life. I'm the expert at in the therapeutic strategies that I use. And so
Which are advice adverse.
Exactly.
I'm gathering.
So it's not helpful for me to give you advice in that way. What I think we miss, though, is that people really need concrete tools in problem solving. And so I think a lot of what I do in the room isn't giving advice, but it's not well, you'll get it, buddy. It's okay, let's really talk through this. How would you make a decision here? What factors do we need to consider? And I think, you know, moving into as much detail as you need to, and then giving you as much time as you need to be able to feel like you've really thought through and made a decision that feels good.
Okay. Well, I've got a level set speed running.
Yes.
Because my mother listens to the podcast. She hosted the last episode. Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. A little bit of a change of pace, I guess.
Is it 2 episodes ago?
No, it would be a 1 episode ago.
Okay, cool.
We recorded out of order of the publication, which is why she's
It's
confused,
completely
dear
thrown me off.
listeners.
Yep.
So that's how the sausage gets made. But Mom, listen up. Remember playing Super Mario Brothers with Dad back in the 90s? There are people who make a living playing that game, and really every game, to see how quickly they can beat the game.
And it's like absurdly fast.
Minutes. Like a game that could take you a couple hours to play, they're beating in minutes. There are different types of speedrunning, like one where I'm employing cheats within the game, and one where I'm actually running it through the way
Like
it's
as
supposed to be
intended.
as intended. Great way to put it. And as you can imagine, it's a huge hobby and it's very visual, so a lot of people like watching speedrunners. So I would love to be able to speedrun therapy with cheats on.
Right? With cheats.
Like I'm married to the therapist.
Not as
That's a
intended.
cheat. Therapy can take a while.
Yeah.
Healing can take a while. Working through complicated issues can take a while, which is hilarious because I hear about a lot of your clients on a macro level. I never hear about individuals.
Right.
But a better way to say that is I hear about your work with your clients.
Yeah,
The
I'm
type of
telling
work
you
that you
about
do.
what I'm
Yeah.
experiencing, what I'm seeing as trends. And
Yeah, and that's what you share on the podcast, right? And, people are kind of the same.
Yeah.
We are looking for safety. We are looking for comfort. We're looking for connection with other people.
Yeah.
And we all are like deeply fucked up and ashamed of how we're fucked up.
Yeah.
And what I'm learning from you is that everyone, as incredibly different and specifically different our situations can be, ultimately the path to healing looks almost exactly the same
Yeah.
from person to person. So the scenario that I want to posit to you, is that a right fucking term? I sound like a
I
posit.
think it sounded good.
I think sounding smart is just confidence, and I'm not a very confident person.
Is it the scenario you want to pose to me?
What I want to put to you, what I want to put up against you.
Okay.
All right, don't get horny on the podcast.
Hi, Lolly. How's it going?
Hey, Mom. Let's imagine a scenario where I get 4 sessions with you a month. And you're going to spend those first 3 sessions just kind of learning about me and asking me questions. I'm going to be sharing with you.
You're not about to say you get 4 sessions a month, which would be like a weekly schedule. You mean you only get a month of therapy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it. And then I'm never going to get an opportunity to work with a therapist again.
Yeah.
Certainly not you again. This is it.
I don't like that.
Just try
I'm
to.
with you. I'm here.
It's like a game.
I hate games.
I know you hate games. Okay, then it's very serious. It's not this isn't a game.
Okay.
This is very serious. Does that help? 3 sessions of fact finding. 1 session. It's an hour long. You're gonna tell me what I should do with my life and how I should heal and what steps I should take. Now, normally, and the reason I like this, thought exercise is because in therapy, a lot of it is kind of gently holding somebody's hand and walking down the path of healing with them, kind of encouraging them and advising them along the well, not advising, but like helping along the way.
To me, there's this image of walking down a path side by side, and I've got a lantern that's like guiding our next couple of steps together. And also, I've walked down this road before, so I know like the road signs. Like
You're
I
familiar
know
with it.
exactly.
Yeah. You're like finding like scat on the trail and like dipping your fingers in it and like smelling it.
Exactly.
And, like, this is fresh. We're gonna go this way.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
You can't. I can't not ever think about scat when we're talking about walking down a path in
We've
the
watched
woods.
too much Alone.
Too much. Yeah, that's a. There are people out there that are like, oh look, poop. I'll glean some
I want
information
to
from
move
this.
toward this.
Poop, the Google of the wild, my guy. So we're walking down this path, and that's kind of how therapy evolves over a longer engagement, right? But what if all you had time for was to like help me hook my backpack around my shoulders and send me into the woods myself? What advice would you give me? I don't get a lantern. You're not with me by my side. I don't even know where the poop is, for Christ's sakes, to figure out which direction I should go. What does that session look like? That's what I was hoping you could talk me through.
Okay. Well, the thing that I do want to lay out before this, and I hope that you'll help guide me back to this question, but the thing that I do want to lay out is I think something that's been especially harmful about insurance in particular and how it doesn't understand therapy and mental health.
Oh, I think it understands it fine. I think it understands it fine. It doesn't give a fuck about therapy or mental health.
Yeah. Is that the whole idea is speed. The whole idea is we should move through this as quickly as possible, and 4 to 8 sessions is more than enough for you to be, to me, like band-aided up and on your way. And I think that's all that it can be, because it takes time to get to know somebody. I think early on in our relationship about things that I never thought I would share, you have like a thought or a memory come to mind and you're like, I'll never tell anybody this.
Oh, time to put that back down where it belongs.
Ooh, oops, that almost came up to the surface. Let's tuck that away. And then another year or 2 will pass with you. And I'm like, oh, of course I'd tell Price that. But I'd never tell Price this other thing. And then more time passes and you just like learn to trust that relationship. And so I think again, we'll do this conversation the way you want to. We'll talk about it as a speed run. I'm here for it. I think some people will only ever get limited access to therapy or maybe just a podcast like this. So I think it's a good and worthwhile question. But in general, I think time is a critical part of the equation of therapy. And to the best of my ability, I want to make therapy accessible because that time component is really, really important. It just takes time to feel safe. And there are certain things you might feel safe about early on, but not other things. And that's okay. I'll have people 6 months in for the first time be able to share something that they didn't think that they were going to be able to share before, or that they shared in a different way before. So if you have the opportunity, find a therapist that you can be in the long haul with. Find a therapist that even if maybe you only get a couple sessions up front, you feel that you can like come back to down the road. Because I think time is critical. The other thing is that time builds trust because you're starting to see stuff work. So you're like, okay, I wasn't sure if this was going to work, but now that time is passing, I'm seeing changes in my life. And I feel more trusting to be able to come back to this space and figure out what my next steps are. Okay, back to your question. If people are speedrunning therapy because that's the option that you have.
Yeah. What is it that we need to know? What is it that you see? What do you wish you could tell every client? If we didn't need time to heal or time to grow and we were just ready to do the thing, right? We're just there, which is not real. That's not how we actually work, but
yeah. So there are a couple of things. One is that we really do need a witness to our life. We really do need somebody. That can be the value of siblings. That can be the value of long-term friends. It can be the value of like healthy family members. But you really need somebody who saw you, because we don't always see ourselves well. And so if it's not your therapist who's seeing you well, you really need to seek out people for a similar sort of relationship. And by that, I mean a safe relationship. One where you just feel like you can be all of you, or as much of you as you can bear to be right now in your life. Maybe down the road you're more. But somebody who is a witness to the real you.
So I think that I understand more of the implications of what you're saying. But I could easily see somebody listening who's kind of on the outside looking in, thinking, okay, yeah, everybody could use a friend, but that's not exactly what you're like. Yes, people need friends, but that's not exactly what you're saying when you say you need a witness to your life, though.
Yeah.
Because a therapist isn't like a professional friend.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
So
it's something different.
Yeah, talk me through what that means exactly.
You need somebody who sees you and withholds judgment. And that's, I think our friends can't help but be involved in our life, and they usually maybe know other people in our life.
I don't judge anybody as much as I judge my friends.
Maybe we're especially judgy of our friends sometimes, but you need somebody who can like love you, but also somehow have a layer of removal from your life where they're able to just like non-judgmentally see you. I think that's something, as like to totally sidebar, something that worked really well about our friendship before we were ever dating is that we were good friends and we were honest with each other, but we lived very far apart. And so you weren't involved with my friends and I wasn't involved with yours. And you were really somebody that I could be honest with. Because there was an inability to be like too caught up in the interpersonal bits of that.
Yeah.
And so if you can find those sorts of things, sure, you need friends, you need community, all of that stuff is good, but you need somebody who's going to be able to like love you and remind you of what's true about you. Like love you and remind you of what used to be and who you are now. I think that that's an important piece. Another thing that comes to mind is if you could like really look for the shame in your life. What do you not want to talk about? That's exactly the thing that needs healing. Like if there are parts of you, parts of who you are, parts of what you've done or experienced that feel like something you cannot talk about, that is probably exactly the thing that is going to need healing down the road. And so keeping an eye out for those things and maybe not pushing yourself, don't share in an environment that's unsafe to you, but like keep an eye on shame in your life and know that like shame keeps us repeating patterns. And so people feel even more ashamed about that, but that's just how shame works, is that it keeps us doing the same things because we feel like that's all that is out there for us.
So what I'm hearing is like find some friends and tell them the most fucked up things about you.
Yeah. You need trustworthy people in your life. That's why like I think therapy needs to be ongoing and why I don't mean the same thing as friends. Eventually though, I think real healing takes place when we are a good witness to our own life. When we've like cultivated enough compassion for ourselves, not just empathy, not just like the same feeling, but when we've cultivated enough compassion in ourselves where we can really look back at our past self and love that person. Like that is healing. Like love and feel tenderly toward that person and feel proud of that person and thankful for them for doing what they needed to do to get through. Like that's a big deal.
There are moments in my life where I look back and everyone does this and I just cringe and my butthole clenches. Just a butthole, just a real clincher of a moment.
Right.
You know? And I've got stuff from last year that I feel that way about. You know, and you think, man, I'm 30, like I should stop doing stupid shit. And that is not the case. It's just more runway behind you of stupid shit that you've done.
Yep.
And now it's like there's levels of stupid shit that I've done. Like it gets more and more stupid the more and more responsibility I have in my life as an adult. We're all just out here faking it until we make it, if we make it. I digress. My point is that the only comfort that I have with that is just trying to appreciate why that behavior made sense to me at the time.
Yeah.
You know, like last year, I started a business during a manic episode.
Yep.
Not ideal, you know?
Not ideal.
I wanted to tell everybody about it, and I hit up all these people and got all this enthusiasm for it, and all my friends were on board, and then I realized I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's extraordinarily humiliating to me.
Yeah.
But, like, if I look at that with a softer lens or a kinder lens to myself, I know why that happened. Mm-hmm. And I'm still embarrassed over it. Like, I'm actively embarrassed. I'm not over this. This is the first time I think I've talked about this, really.
Yeah.
I'm still actively embarrassed over this thing happening, but yeah, I was manic.
Yeah.
I was manic and excited. God damn it,
yeah.
Excited, and I was and people fed off the enthusiasm that I had.
I was gonna say the other thing that I I think I see so clearly, or I felt at the time and I see so clearly looking back on, is how many people in your life like love and trust you. And I think that that's part of maybe some of the embarrassment, is that this happened in front of people that you care about and respect. But people were like, okay, Price, like, you don't know about this space, but I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe this energy that you have about it, and I believe who you are as a person, that you're going to figure stuff out. And even though it didn't turn into the business that you thought, like, there was purpose in it. We learned so much, and it has impacted everything we've done since then.
Yeah, it was a good business idea. It was help therapists who are working for practices open their own practice. Because just because you're a great therapist doesn't mean you're great at like running a business. I made one eensy mistake with this business plan.
What was that?
I hadn't actually opened or run a successful private practice yet myself.
yeah.
So I did not know how to do it.
No.
And apparently enthusiasm for an idea does not equal experience in an idea. And I learned that the hard way. What's amazing is how many people I got to like get on board with that before we all realized the reality, which was that Price doesn't know what he's doing.
But that speaks to you, though. Like, I think that speaks to those people have a history with you, and they were like, this might be new for Price, but Price figures shit out. Like, I believe him.
And we're gonna redo it. Like, I'm getting experience now. Like, we're gonna do that again. It's a good idea. Anyways, it's just some of our most embarrassing moments need a little when we give ourselves a little context around them, a little kindness.
Okay, so here's the other way that time plays into it, and what I would tell somebody in a last, final fourth session or whatever, is that, like, you are allowed to give yourself time, and that urgency piece that you have either has to do with like real experiences you've lived through, you've survived through, where it was like survival and you had to have that urgency, or it's the voice of somebody in your life telling you ought to be faster, you ought to be better at this. It's that, like, you should be this different thing than you are, and what this person is going to need to give themselves of is a lot of time and patience. And that's what I get to do as a therapist. But if you're now setting out to do this on your own, give yourself time and patience. And clients are frequently frustrated with me or confused by me not pushing them as hard as they think that I should be pushing them.
Well, a lot of people are pushed their entire lives, whether it's academically or through athletics.
And in therapy. There's a lot of therapy that's pushing you, that's like, you got to get your shit together. We got to figure this out as quickly as we can. Again, we're on like an insurance timeline. And
that your work is paying for, and guess what? You need to go back to work.
Right. And to me, like, the other thing you're going to need to cultivate in yourself is a lot of patience for yourself. So, like, it's going to take a lot of time. One, it's going to take longer than you think, but then the flip side of that, and the other thing to keep in mind that I'd want this person to keep in mind, is that it feels good before you get there. You don't need to get to the end point for things to feel good in between.
I was filled with anxiety over this. Like, how long is this going to take when I first started therapy? And if I could go back, and it takes a long time, but it's a good journey. And at the time, when we talk about, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we trying to overcome? I was so depressed I could hardly get out of bed. My weight was out of control. My health was out of control, or not even not even in the back of my mind.
Right, was in no way a priority in your life.
My mental health was in shambles. I was really struggling just to keep it together. And what we're moving towards is like a kinder life that's a little more realistic.
Yeah.
And where I'm actually able to adjust the levers of the speed of like how I'm trying to succeed in my life, and finding success when I'm not setting myself up for failure all the fucking time, because it's like, oh, I'm going to do this by next month. Like, my guy, be more realistic, set more realistic goals. But that goes against a narrative that I'm exposed to all the time, because I'm into weightlifting, watching weightlifting, powerlifting, and bodybuilding, educational stuff on YouTube. The people who are watching on YouTube are like, what an interesting hobby to just watch those videos. Working on it. No, I'm kidding. but I get plastered with this life advice, these motivational videos. Like, get up, you only live once. There's no
Yeah.
promise of tomorrow, and there's some validity to that.
Yeah.
So what do you say to that when your message to the people was like, give yourself time?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, immediately what I'm thinking of is I love that this person has long-term goals. I love that you have some long-term image of what that is probably supposed to quote unquote look like. That's great. I love that for you. We need really short-term goals. You need to look for somebody or look for an idea that is one half step ahead of where you are. Like you need to look, if you're really, really struggling, if you can't get out of bed and you've never paid attention to your physical health, or you haven't in years, you've never paid attention to your mental health, you're not looking at me saying, I'm going to be like Ash. That's great. I love that. I think that is lovely. And yeah, I think you will. I think that's great. But don't look at that and go, well, I have this huge gap that I have to fill. You need to look at somebody who like just can get out of bed. What is that person doing? Maybe they're not accomplishing a whole lot. Maybe they haven't touched on physical and mental health stuff yet. But you need to look one baby half step ahead. Yeah. And that usually looks like, I think about something called harm reduction, which is like if I have a client who has really bad coping skills, quote unquote, again, for coping skills, because coping skills are just what we do to get by. They're all neutral. They're just the things that we do.
Yeah.
But they might have coping skills that are also hurting them. Like they're drinking a lot to handle stress, or they're constantly high to handle stress, or they're doing like a self-harm behavior, whatever it is. I don't need them to completely stop doing those things and be completely healed versions of themselves. If you're drinking 4 glasses of wine a night, let's work on 3. I don't need you to do none, because then you're going to be left without a coping skill and something else is going to come fill that void.
When you see people online who are extraordinarily disciplined and selling services and products based off of that lifestyle, that they're lifestyle coaches, and they're telling you how and why you should be as disciplined as them, there is an aspect of that is a bold-faced lie that they're selling. And the lie is that you can do that immediately.
The lie is that you can do that immediately, and also that really exists for them. Even if your goal is to be Ash, even if your goal is to be... I have bad mental health days. Like I have days where it kind of sucks and I'm having a hard time. And those people have days where they're not sticking to their regimen diet and exercise plan and getting up at, like they have days where that's not working the same, but they're not posting that online. They're not telling you about that. They have an image to sell. So you have the image that they do this 100% of the time, and they don't. And also, if they're making that their living, if that's what they live off of, this is all they have to spend their time on.
Yeah.
You could do it too if all you had was to think about eating in a slightly different way and waking up at it. Like if you only had to focus on those things, you would do it too. But you also have a job, and you also have kids, or you also have whatever else it is in your life, and probably 100 other things that are in your way. And like, that's really tough. They started somewhere, and it's not where it is now. And also what it is now is not an accurate picture of what's going on.
I think you should find more average heroes. And I'm happy to step into that role for you. I am so average. I'm such an average guy.
You are not, and I don't think that's fair to our listeners to also compare themselves to you all of the time. But yeah, find your average heroes. I love that.
I want to share about you being emotional. And you told me about it over text.
Oh, okay. Yes.
She texted me and she said sometimes you do a tone of voice that in years past has been annoying to me. And I've asked you, hey, stop talking like that. You get a really kind of... I
get real monotone.
Vocal fry, monotone. And now I've realized that that's part of the way that you talk, and like...
It's a trauma response. When this certain part of your brain gets activated, that nerve touches your vocal cords, and it changes your vocal cords, and you don't have control over dropping into your low, gravelly sort of volume.
As we've said many times before, things that annoy you with your partner can often be a lack of understanding, right?
Right,
So
right.
as I learned more about that, it was like it truly doesn't bother me anymore. I don't decide to not say anything. It doesn't bother me anymore. So the other night you were talking like that. I didn't really even notice. And then the next day you texted me and you're like, it meant so much to me that you didn't say anything when I was talking like that. I actually cried about it. And what did I respond?
I don't want to say it.
It was one word.
Price called me a pussy. And thankfully, we're at a point in our relationship where I received that and laughed a lot because I had just been crying.
You got to call them how you see them, you know?
That was
Speedrunning.
such a small moment that meant a lot. And the thing is to like keep your eye out for those things. But again, be so like gentle and kind with yourself, be patient with yourself, and sure, have a goal that's 80 steps ahead of where you are, but also have a goal that's half a step of where you are and a full step ahead of where you are.
I think that if you're looking at an enormous staircase, you can, start climbing that staircase with your eyes set on the top step, but you're more likely to stumble, right? When anybody walks up a staircase that they're unfamiliar with, at least you're looking at your feet.
Yeah,
One
and this
step at a
isn't,
time.
life isn't the predictable staircase that's maybe in your home. Life is like one of those
hiking
like
trail that's vertical.
exactly
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
hiking trail staircase built into the side of a mountain where each step is uneven and there are roots, and like look at your next step.
Yeah.
Look at just the 1 to 2 steps in
And you
front of
can
you.
be aware of where you're going, right? That's a beautiful thing to know what you want in your life. But yeah, take one step at a time. Get the four glasses of wine to 3.
Right.
Get the bedtime of 3 a.m. to 2.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly that.
Do it incrementally, and then before long you'll be in control of your sleep cycle, and
Yeah.
you'll have your drinking a little bit more where you want it, and like
Yeah.
these things take time.
Yeah, 1 step at a time. The other thing is, with some of those things, it makes sense. We are getting to a very specific goal. But in the goal of your life, I think that the most successful and happy people I know are surprised at what they ended up doing. They're surprised at something of their life that they didn't realize was going to come along for them. Whether that's they thought they'd be in a relationship and they're really enjoying like the part of their life where they're getting to be single and explore for themselves, and it turns out that that's really meaningful to them. Or it's the part of their life where like they never expected their career to take this turn or whatever. And I think when you're way too many steps ahead in planning those things, you also maybe miss something that's like fun and exciting and beneficial to you.
God,
That's
I'm
a left
guilty
turn.
of this. I'm guilty of this. I'm so set on the thing that I'm set on
Yeah.
that I don't stop to smell the roses. Like I forget to enjoy life now. And
Yeah.
I've spent the better part of the last couple of years doing that. And now we're talking about moving homes from our more rural community to like into the city. And now there's this part of me that's like, well, I'll have fun when that happens.
Yeah.
I'll enjoy my life when that change is made, and I
Yep.
do that to myself. And it's like, at what point will I have found myself living somewhere, and my finances are where I want them to be, and my career is where I want it to be, where I can finally allow myself to enjoy
Yeah.
things. And that's such a shitty way to live, because what I found is that I move that goalpost every year as to what I want for my life. That's never consistent for me.
That's the mindset that like helps people sell us things, right? Is this like, this one thing is going to be the game-changing thing. You can't enjoy your life until you have this thing in it. And once you have this thing, that's when your life starts. That's when happiness begins. When you get this relationship through our dating app, when you are able to like make money quickly because of this, when you're able to do whatever, like you can't be happy now, but you can be happy when you do this one big thing. And it's like nothing in life is like that. And that's why people can have lots of things or have a relationship and still be miserable. Because none of those things are it in and of themselves. It's like you focusing on the little hidden joys in life.
I know that we see hundreds, if not thousands, of advertisements a day. because almost everything that we look at is an advertisement. You and I were just talking, I think last night or the night before, that like I'm convinced every TikTok, every YouTube video, every Instagram reel is an ad. Every one of them. And I'm even guilty of that myself. Every video that we've ever put out is an ad for this podcast.
Right.
Which I hope to monetize someday. I hope to read ads on this. Like, I'm not going to pretend that that's not what I'm trying to do here someday, right? All of it's an ad.
Yeah.
So this is like, you are inundated with the message that you don't have what you need in order to be happy.
Yeah.
Hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. Let this be one of the only places that you hear that you can determine happiness within yourself.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, NordVPN, for sponsoring today. No, I'm just kidding.
Do not give credit to somebody not paying us right now.
Don't download NordVPN. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. There's no sponsor.
But yeah, that, and I also, like, the flip side of that is I also think we overestimate how many people are just getting their basic needs met. And if you don't have reliable, like, community in your life, if you are worried about your, like, financial future, like, those are big impactful things. And also, like, be so kind to yourself, you're allowed to be lonely, or you're allowed to be anxious about that.
And be wary of messages that are like, everything's fine.
Yeah.
As well. Everything's fine. Like, every movie or TV show, are you going to sneeze? Do it. Sneeze.
No,
sneeze.
I'm not.
Sneeze.
I'm not.
Sneeze. Oh, you lost it. Did I put too much pressure on that? Oh, now you're frowning. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
We're going to persevere. We're going to move.
Okay.
Back to what I was saying. Every movie and TV show, I feel like the middle class family that's shown is always living in a really nice house, driving really nice cars.
Nice house, really nice cars.
They're millionaires in our actual economy, but they're like.
But they're just supposed to be like.
Dad's
a
like an
normal
accountant
family.
at a mid-sized firm. Yeah. They're. I just feel like we're fed this like constant lie that like everything's fine.
Yeah.
Like we're all doing well, and we're not. Things aren't great. I hate to be like a negative Nancy. Things aren't great though. If you're feeling stressed or anxious, that is an appropriate response to the world that we live in. Like climate change, political partisanship and political escalation, cultural
just feeling disconnected
issues.
From one another. Yeah. There's a lot of that going on.
We're plugged into a system that has got us completely docile, where we have the illusion of choice of all of the different shows that we can watch on Netflix, and we think that gives us a personality, when in reality, like, your life is like choosing from Netflix, and you're saddled with student debt and your mortgage and your bills or your rent or whatever, and there's very little actual freedom. There are very few people in our culture that are enjoying true freedom, and they are all much wealthier than any of us could ever even imagine being.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, if you're feeling a little fucked up right now, good. Good. That's an appropriate response to the world you live in.
That's something that I get to tell people often is I want to maybe make sure we're staying on target.
Sorry.
Because I do a bad job of that. But
I'm doing a bad job
something
today.
I get to tell people often is, they're like, I'm feeling really anxious, or I'm feeling so sad about this breakup or whatever. And maybe I'm feeling like too sad or too anxious or whatever. And I get to be like, no, it makes sense. And I'm so glad that you're feeling sad about the breakup of the 3-year relationship you were just in. I would be worried about you if you weren't.
Right.
And looking at the way that a lot of the world feels now, especially if you're constantly staring at it because you're plugged in all of the time, regardless of whatever medium that is that's plugging you in, like, yes, it makes sense that you're anxious. I would be worried about you if you weren't.
Yeah.
But let's take a step back. Let's unplug for that. Let's get connected with real people.
I think what we've been circling here is what I want to say explicitly is that you're constantly being told how to feel. Constantly. And as a therapist, and you've shared with me as a professional, that convincing somebody that everything's fine and they should go back to work, which is a specific type of therapy that's pretty commonly practiced and That doesn't work because you can't force somebody to feel a way that they don't feel.
Well, okay, so that is the conversation we were just having, that I think I would also want this person to know, is that you'll know when you're processing stuff the way that you're supposed to. A lot of times people are like, what will it feel like to be on the other side of something? How do I know? If you look back and you feel, oh, I feel silly for feeling that way, it's probably not processed. And I think that there are a lot of therapies that will tell you that, oh, it's silly that you felt that way.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Don't you feel silly now? Isn't it a relief? And you're like, yeah, I guess that was silly
If
for me
your
to feel.
therapist is like, okay, tell me what's making you anxious, and you share, and they're like, okay, cool, let's walk through that and discuss all the ways that shouldn't make you feel
Here's
anxious.
why that's not really anxiety inducing and you're
Yeah.
silly to feel so.
Yeah, that's cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah,
CBT.
and it's like
very
professional
common.
gaslighting.
Professional gaslighting.
But you'll know that you have processed something. You'll know that you're past it when you're able to say, that makes sense. When you're able to say, that made sense, and I can feel compassion for that past self, like that is genuine processing, not, oh, I feel silly for having felt that way. I'm past it now.
If you're looking at a situation, you're like, man, I'm fucked up over this. This fucked me up. My brother in Christ, my brothers and sisters and friends in between, and you are as fucked up as you are over that thing. And pretending or telling yourself that you're not anymore doesn't make you not fucked up over that thing. I think what you're saying, Ash, is like when you get to a place where you're able to accept how fucked up that was, how fucked up you felt, and kind of just have some compassion for that person, that means that you're really getting over it.
Yeah.
But if you're like, well, that was stupid, I shouldn't have felt that way, you're not.
You might not be over it.
You might be lying to yourself a little bit.
Well, you might have been lied to.
Yeah, absolutely. What else would you say in our speed run of therapy?
You know, I've done really quick short-term sessions before. We had this thing at the university I worked at where people could come in for kind of a half-hour trial of therapy. And sometimes that was all the time I was going to get, and I knew this person was not going to come back for full-time therapy. And so we were very concrete about their situation and about problem solving. And I think that all the platitudes that sound so nice, like all the things that we hear therapists throw out as like just nice things to say, you know, the things that make you feel like, oh, that was silly, I was silly to feel that way, are not helpful to you. Like, you need to get connected with probably community resources that can give you a real plan for what to do. And so I would also want this person to know that like they're deserving of resources and that there are people who do every sort of job. And so if there's something that you need access to, there's probably a place that provides that access, you know?
Give a few examples, like 3 examples.
Okay. For instance, there are a lot of places that help with resume writing. There are people who like get paid online a ton to do it, but there's also like if you're at a college, your university has somebody who can help you with resume writing. They have a career services officer. If you, there are lots of like nonprofit programs that help people get back to work. They're like something exists for you in getting creative and kind of what you're asking for and like knowing that there is probably a concrete resource out there can be a big deal. But get connected with somebody who can help you take the next little steps. Get connected with somebody who can break the big thing down into something smaller and manageable. If you're looking at your to-do list and it's overwhelming, like either you or somebody in your life can help you break that down into something smaller and bite-sized, and that's important for you. You're allowed to have it in bite-sized chunks.
A pro tip is literally use the words, I need your help. People like being asked for their help.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed. So if you go to somebody whose job is literally to help you and say, I need your help, you'll usually get it.
Okay, so that's another good thing that I'd want this person to know. Say the stuff you need out loud. And if the people around you aren't helping with that, it's not because you're not allowed to need things. You need different people. Like, keep saying what you need out loud. I heard something that was so well phrased the other day, and it was about boundaries. And a lot of people come to therapy and they're like, I don't know what boundaries are. I've never I'm not familiar with setting boundaries. My family didn't have good boundaries. And so we're talking about like, what is a boundary? What isn't a boundary? And what I thought was a really beautiful point is that we all have boundaries. Hello, Lafayette the cat. We all have boundaries in our life. We all have something that if like somebody crossed that or did that to us, it would upset us. It would frustrate us. We would in some way like count it as a strike against somebody, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But,
Bitch.
but being able to say that thing out loud, that's boundary setting. So even if we can't get it in like an I feel statement with all the extra fluff around it, practice saying what you need to the people around you. Practice saying out loud on your first date, here's what I'm looking for. Like practice saying out loud in your first job interview, like this is what I need. Practice like getting to state your needs out loud. You are a human, you have needs. They just exist. I don't need you to pretend you don't have needs.
Fellas, listen up. Listen up, fellas, especially. We've been taught that our value is in not needing anything from anybody.
Yeah.
But that's not true. It goes back to like you actually do have needs. It's not that you should have needs and you don't and you should invent some. You do have needs.
You have them. You have boundaries. The cats are playing with a box. You have boundaries. You have things in your life that would bother you. You have needs. You have things that you know you're struggling to be without. Like, if those things aren't accepted, it's because you're in the wrong environment. And that's really, really important. Find your places where you can say what you need out loud and people hear them. Find your relationship where you can say what you need out loud and somebody's there to
you send me a text thanking me for that you got emotional over how grateful you were over the way that I treated you, and I responded pussy. But that was contextual. You knew that I was being playful. And so that was clear communication. But somebody who treats you like that for real, maybe that's not the right person for you to be spending time with.
Yeah, if you're saying what you need and the person doesn't want to have that conversation with you, like it's probably not a great fit in your life. Sometimes it's really hard to say what we need though, and that's understandable. You've probably been taught that like you're too much, or that what's great about you, your best quality is how you hardly need anything. You were such an easy kid, or you're whatever. And like, if that's you, I feel that. But something that's been a huge change in my life in just the past couple of years has been allowing myself to be observed. Like allowing other people to see me, because that feels really threatening and dangerous. If you're somebody who grows up being told you can't have needs, or your needs aren't valuable, or they're not going to be met, you're not going to do that.
And you're not saying you're agoraphobic, meaning you didn't want to leave the house. You're talking about your whole vibe, right? You'd go out, but you didn't want to be the center of attention. You didn't want to be engaged in conversation.
I was very much masked.
Yeah.
And even, I think, in our own personal home life, there were a lot of things that you didn't know about me.
Yeah.
Or that I tried to keep as, like, needs that I tended to just by myself on my own.
Your involvement in the Cuban Missile Crisis was
right. Yeah, I really kept that under wraps. But allowing yourself to be, like, witnessed, again, allowing yourself to be observed by the people in your life, I think is a big deal.
I think that, you know, I take all of this in from a very masculine perspective.
Yeah.
Which is, we're saying be kind to yourself. We're saying take your time. We're saying be gentle, being soft. And all of those things feel counter to what I would find masculinely appealing, or I think just appealing to a lot of people, where it's like, go get it. Be intentional. Focus up and get it done.
Yeah.
And I want to be very clear, like, the things that you're advising being gentle over are because how hard this is. This does take balls.
Yeah. No, it's fucking tough.
Yeah.
Like, it is fucking tough to deal with trauma and intergenerational trauma and to ask for what you need. Like, these things are difficult, ballsy things to do.
But if you're out to, like, raise the greatest NFL QB of all time, that kid doesn't start playing in the league. He starts playing with the other kids, right? Like the path to greatness is filled with small steps.
Right, one small step ahead.
So I want everybody to feel super motivated that like I want to be great in my life. Well, that's not going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
That starts with a small step.
Okay, here's another thing that I want this person to know. Make it easy on yourself.
Psych, it was me. I'm getting free fucking therapy right now.
Here's what I want you to know in your one-off therapy session. It's the only one you're getting. Something we used to talk about with our dog when we got her and she was a puppy was opportunities to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
Connie is a great dog. And I mean, she's been a therapy dog. Like, she's just a wonderful, everybody feels like their dog's special. And our dog is the most specialist of all of them. She's super great. And early on as a puppy, she peed on the floor and she chewed on stuff and she got into things. And so you and I talked a lot about opportunities to succeed, which was as soon as we got home, like, she was going out. Before we left, she went out. We were making sure that she was in spaces where if she did have an accident, it was easy. We were making sure that there was nothing out for her to be able to chew on or get into. We made the perfect environment so that when we got home and she had been successful, we all got to celebrate that. And you can do that in your own life.
Oh, what's important is when she did use a bathroom, we didn't come home and stick our nose in it and beat the shit out of her.
Right.
We ignored it. We just, we cleaned it up, but we just ignored it. Of course, I smelled the poop.
Right, you did, yeah.
For navigational purposes, of course.
Where am I? Oh, this is home. Yeah, that's right.
But we acted like she had cured cancer every time she used the bathroom outside.
Yep.
It wasn't like, yes, this is good.
Yeah.
It was like, fuck yes, let's go. And she quickly got it. She was like, oh, this is where this is supposed to happen. And I think what you're getting at is our brains are a little bit like that, right?
We're very similar. We need the same sorts of things. We need to like set ourselves up for success, and then we need to really allow ourselves to celebrate. That does something very real in our brain, celebrating. It is a built-in part of being human that we need to celebrate small successes too. But giving yourself the opportunity to succeed might look like if you're wanting like to get up earlier, like you said, instead of, if you're waking up at noon, wake up at 11, then wake up at 10:30, 10, 9:30, 9. But then the other thing that you should do is be allowing yourself to do relaxing bedtime routine activities earlier in the evening. Set yourself up for success. You're not going to go to bed at 3 a.m. and then wake up at 6 a.m. if that's what you want to do. Like, you need to be gentle on the back end too. And so I think about a concept that was shared with me about having like separate selves and doing something nice for my future self to set her up for success. So if I have a busy day, but I also want the house to be clean, the night before I'm like, what is future Ashlyn really going to be happy that I did? Mm-hmm. And that was something else I've talked a lot about with clients. Like, if they're working on a project in school and they're like, man, I've got so much to do, and I always put it off until the last minute. It's like, well, you don't have to do everything at once. Yeah. You don't have to be a master at, planning out your whole day right from the start. We're not there yet. But what can you do that's going to be kind to tomorrow you waking up and still having this assignment due? Is there anything you can do to set her up for success so that she has an easier day when she wakes up to this?
Or if you're sitting here and like, I get so angry and emotional. I get so angry I cry. Mm-hmm. That was my thing. Mm. I got so angry I cried because I wasn't allowed to get loud in my home growing up. So you had to like implode on yourself, not explode, like growing up.
And anger is also often coupled with tears. That's really normal too.
But that was extremely embarrassing to me, because it, pussy, like it was, that sort of or I had that attitude towards myself. Now I'm at a place where I used to think that success would be not getting emotional like that anymore. What I'm recognizing now is success is not acting during times of that sort of stress and anger. And I got like that. Something happened yesterday that made me feel, I didn't cry because I'm not a fucking pussy, but okay,
sorry, continue.
But I did feel very activated, and it was something that shouldn't have evoked that level of response in me. And
well, Yeah, let's take a step back and reflect on what we've been talking about. Like the shoulds and the musts in our life are usually problem areas. It's just factual that it did. It just, whatever that combination of things was that
I just mean if I
escalated your nervous
confessed to the
system.
listeners what had happened, they would have
Yeah.
been like, bit of an overreaction there, yeah, a little bit of an overreaction. And I'm like, yeah, it was a little bit of an overreaction. But the reality is, me realizing that it was an overreaction doesn't change the fact that that is how I reacted. That is how I felt. But yesterday was a success because rather than type the email I wanted to send or making the phone call that I wanted to make, I went and I took a break.
Yeah.
I walked away for a
Yeah.
little bit and then I calmed down and then I
Yes.
dealt with it. That was a win.
That was such a win. And what you did really, really well is that the goal wasn't that I never feel angry or upset.
Yeah.
That's unrealistic. You're going to have those feelings and you ought to. There are really important circumstances under which you should get angry and upset and frustrated. But you didn't have to act in that moment. So if you're somebody who tends toward anger, tends toward bouts of like feeling very emotional, you're not going to make it better for yourself by deciding, okay, that's just not something I allow myself to do anymore.
Yeah.
If you're successful, it will be to your detriment, but you probably won't be successful in cutting those emotions out. But you can decide not to act in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want my anger to be legendary and like awesome
Yeah.
because I want to be angry over the right things
Yeah.
and express it in the right ways. Right now, I can't say that that's true of my anger because I don't feel like I always express it. But yesterday was a win.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
A few minutes left. 5-10 minutes left. What else are we telling our speedrunner?
That's making me think of like no bad parts, that every part of you exists for a reason and helped you get by. And so when you encounter a part of yourself that you don't like very much or you don't understand, you are allowed to start with a baseline of there was something there that made sense. And that's how I approach clients too, is I already come in with a built-in understanding that whatever they did made sense. It might not make sense to me right now, and
Yeah.
it might not make sense to them right now.
Yeah.
But if we talk about it long enough and get in there, we'll figure out why it did make sense.
Right.
And you're allowed to approach yourself with the same baseline understanding that like the parts of me that I don't like, that I don't get along with, the parts of me who do things that I hate, that set me up for failure, those parts of you existed for a reason. And whether you're able to fully look back and untangle why isn't as important as just giving that bit of yourself the space to be and understanding that it exists for a reason. Oh gosh, I just want this person to have all the time in the world to like be able to talk through these things. But finding a safe environment that's not activating to you. If you're constantly in spaces where your heart rate's getting up and you're getting anxious and nervous or angry, that's probably not the exact environment you're going to find healing in.
And I think it can feel very overwhelming to, oh, great. Yeah, let me just go find some reliable, amazing friends who are super mature.
That sounds good.
Easy, but the internet's a powerful tool and you should utilize it, right?
Oh, and seek out people who are in different places in life. I think something that goes poorly there is that a lot of people, when they're feeling like, oh, my life is fucked up, they relate most to other people who are also feeling like their life is fucked up. You're allowed to have friends who are in the same place in life as you, but also seek out friends who are 10 years older than you.
Yeah.
See, don't date people 10 years older than you, but seek out people in your life who are like a few stages ahead who can look back and reflect back and help you through those moments. Look for people who are a different generation than you to help you understand something in a different context. Like those are some clues.
But
to
Price and
getting in.
Ash, I don't even know how to do that. Like, make something for your neighbors.
That's what Price is really, really good at.
That's my go-to.
Yeah.
Bake something or cook something or make something for your neighbors. Having neighbors who you know on a first name basis and have some sort of positive relationship with is actually really reassuring. It's something that we don't really have that much anymore, and I blame that on the internet more than anything. But how many apartment complexes have you and I cycled through and never met anybody?
So true.
So I think that if you're looking for an easy win there, that might be a place to start. That might be something you can check out.
Yeah. I think that I want this person to know, like, you're going to need to be kinder to yourself than you think you need to be. You're going to need to be more patient with yourself than you think you need to
We
be.
live in a world that is relying on you thinking that something's wrong with you.
Yep,
right?
that sense of urgency is like that message.
That's how we get you to buy stuff. Right? That's what this all comes back to. You're fighting a system that just wants your money. So the best way to get your money is to tell you that you're incomplete, and if you give me money, I can make you complete.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, you'll need to be kinder to yourself than you think you'll need to be, and if you can't do that, get around people who can be kind. You'll need to be more patient with yourself than you think you need to be, and if you can't do that, get around people who can be patient. And take baby steps toward things. I'm always stretching out baby steps. Like you're allowed to split it in half and then split it in half again and get it down to something that you can manage.
Well, you've got to see it working, right?
Yeah.
If your goal is to lose 100 pounds, like, that's not going to... that's a really bad example because you watch the weight loss the entire time. But if your goal is to suddenly have a normal sleep schedule and you haven't in years, first of all, you will not be successful if there's no incremental steps to that.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't even like setting end dates for that stuff anymore. Just take it as quickly as you can take it. You know, setting the end date has nothing to do with how long it's actually going to take for you to get your sleep schedule back to normal or whatever your goal is, right? You can say, well, by June 30th, I'm going to have this down. I'm a project manager. I'm all for a good end date.
What magical thing happens on June 30th that makes it not like June 29th? Like nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing happens.
What is it by then, you know?
So I think those things are important. I want this person to know that. And then as you're going to have to deal with the basics before you can deal with like getting into the trauma and the bullshit and the stuff that you've dealt with. But when you are getting to that point, if you're somebody you're like, I'm not going to a lot of therapy because I'm doing pretty well, but I'd like to see how I could do better. How can I speedrun therapy? Then the thing that's going to need like a light shown on it are the places of shame in your life. And going to the things that feel like they repeat, the things that feel like the story of your life, and the things that feel shameful to talk about, like those are your areas of focus. But once again, we need a good witness for that. And so even though we can do some of these things for ourselves, like humans are meant to be in community, and you're allowed to like need community.
I know it sounds convenient for the therapist to say we need a witness because that's ultimately like the professional service that you provide, but we do actually need a witness. You're talking about studies that have been conducted on like our neurology.
Yeah, our whole bodies are set up to get into sync with somebody else's brain and nervous system.
And our periods.
Like our periods. Our whole system is set to like sync up with other people, and that's where healing takes place.
My period's been synced with you for, since 2012.
Yeah. And that's very special to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's messy, but it's special.
Okay.
I just wanted everyone to know when you say that you need a witness, you're talking about a physical need, not just hey, it's a good idea to have a therapist.
Right.
You know?
Right. I'm not trying to sell somebody on therapy. What is on my mind, though, is that, like, physiologically, we need another person to bear witness to us. We really, really do. And I think that that's what people have a hard time trusting in, that there's somebody who could bear witness. But, like, also we have a long history of witnessing one another. And there are people out there who can do that. It doesn't,
And if you feel, well, I'm the outcast, I couldn't possibly, like, nobody loves me, who could really want to see me?
Yeah.
That is I hate this. This is not the most kind thing to say to somebody in a vulnerable place like that, but that is a type of arrogance. You think that you're so bad, my brother and sisters and everybody else in between in Christ. It is you haven't met me and the shit that I have done and been up to in my life. And you haven't met anybody else and seen truly who they are. You're only evaluating your own life under that criticism.
Well, what we're talking about today are like core needs.
Yeah.
And we all have the same core needs.
Yeah.
Like you said, my clients in general, I can talk about as a collective because they all need the same things. And I can relate to that because I need the same things. Like, we all have basic needs to be seen and to like feel supported, to have that witness, and to have the space to be able to create growth. It's not pressure, it's not force, like it's the space to be able to create growth. And if you can get to that, like, you're onto something. You're onto something good.
Yeah, we're not coals turning into diamonds. We're plants growing into the sunlight with the appropriate environment for us to grow and to thrive, right?
That leaves me with a really beautiful thought that maybe maybe we can share is I also recently saw it, or a while ago, and I think about it every time I go to water my plants. There was a TikTok that was talking about how soil becomes hydrophobic if you don't water a plant for a long time. And I've had this happen to a plant because here I am. Anyway, if you don't water a plant for a long time, the soil starts to reject water. The water sits on top of it. It runs right off. It won't go in. And the only way to be able to get that plant to a place of being able to get watered, because it still needs water. The plant still has needs. Those needs didn't stop just because this protective layer has been built up around it. You have to drench the soil in water. You have to keep soaking it in water until it's finally able to absorb. And we're the same way when we've been in really tough, cold environments or environments that didn't see us or didn't meet our needs. We get like hydrophobic to an environment that provides that to us. And to just know that like you're allowed to soak in kindness. And I think that if there's anything that's happening over that time is that I'm getting to do as a therapist is just providing like kindness to your hydrophobic soil. Is just like providing an environment where you just sit in love and support. And sitting in that is what's going to allow you to start to soak up the things that you need in life. And you can create some of those things for yourself.
Yeah.
I truly believe that we can do that. So.
Well, Ashlyn, I am so grateful for your time today.
Price, thank you for your time. I'm grateful for your time.
And I'm grateful for your time, dear listener. Please, if you liked this, if there's somebody that you think of who might benefit from this, please share the episode.
And if you are sharing, thanks so much for sharing. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, that's how we're growing. Word of mouth. We appreciate y'all. Yeah. All right. Well, we will see you next time on I Married Your Therapist. Will you give them a little kiss?
A little kiss.
Excellent. Man, I really have to use the restroom.
Have you been feeling some urgency this episode?
Yeah, and I was like, let's go.
Okay, well, let's create a little bit of space and wiggle room for you to go get the fuck out of here.
All right, sounds good.